Chase, welcome back.
I'm excited to be here. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I knew a lot of new players this week.
Yeah, we've got another 5 game set tonight. So that's super exciting that we're continuing to grow and everything's going great here. Um, I'm really looking forward to this matchup. We've got here Woke Flossie versus Elijah or Squiddo. Squiddo the champion over in chat, as we can see. So right off the bat, you want to talk a little bit about these teams?
Yeah, so from Wolf Flossie side, we have Cantoni and Zapdos, Tapu Fini, Garchomp, Metagross, Incineroar, and Amoonguss. It seems like a very basic Metagross team with the weakness policy and some self-proc potentially. It may or may not have come from the ATX VGC website as a rental code. So if you want to hit !website to see the Team Time Metagross teams that were put up last Tuesday, feel free to go ahead and look at that.
Yep. So I just went ahead and dropped that over there in chat, and here we go. We see our players are in team preview right now.
So, I mean, what do we see from Squiddo on the other side?
Yeah, for sure. From Squiddo, we see Incineroar, Metagross, Rillaboom, Dragonite, Indeedee, female, as well as a Hatterene. So some interesting stuff going on here. You've got a fast mode in potentially a max airstream user from that Dragonite, but you've also got a Trick Room mode with that Hatterene and Indeedee. And we might be seeing something on this Metagross like Hammer Arm to drop its own speed, so that it can operate in Trick Room, kind of similar to what we saw Justin Snores bring 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah, and also a fun fact, Incineroar has access to Bulldoze, which could be a self-proc option for this Metagross.
Yeah, it could be. The only thing with it is, in Trick Room, it wouldn't be lowering Metagross's speed because of Clear Body. It's just going to lower everything else around its speed, which, you know, is its own form of speed control.
Yeah, so it's potentially an option if this Trick Room mode is not used. Otherwise, you definitely want to keep the Metagross on the slower end in comparison to everything else.
Yeah.
But we see both players lock in with 10 seconds to spare.
Yep, so looks like everyone is ready to go. And let's get started here with our first battle of the night with ATX VGC Monday Night Friendlies.
Yeah, can't wait.
Alright, right off the bat, let's take a look at these leads.
So we see the Hatterene and the Indeedee from Elijah's end. And from Wolf Flossie's end...
Oh no, you go ahead.
From Wolf Flossie's end, we see Tapu Fini and Incineroar.
Yeah, for sure. So, looking at the speed tiers here, it looks like this Indeedee is going to go ahead and get its Psychic Train up. Perhaps Woke Flossie trying to block that, but with the Tapu Fini being as fast as it is, its Misty Train will go off before that Indeedee's Psychic Train, which will most importantly protect this Hatterene this turn from a potential fake out coming from Incineroar.
So it's a pretty free follow me Trick Room. The one thing is that Woke Flossie can just get a lot of damage off this turn potentially, or even potentially switch around and set up for a better position for turn 2 with Trick Room up. But it does seem like a pretty free setup Trick Room and follow me in this turn 1.
Yeah, for sure. And looks like Woke Flossie's dedicated Trick Room counter in this matchup is going to be weak to both of these Pokemon here, with the potential of Expanding Force kind of being on both of them. So that Amoonguss might be in a little bit of trouble here.
Yeah, for sure. It very much could be. We see the Party Shot come out into the Indeedee, maybe potentially helping the Amoonguss survive an Expanding Force from that slot, but it's not surviving a Max Mindstorm from the Hatterene if it so chooses to Dynamax this upcoming turn.
No, it really doesn't. But it looks like Woke Flossie is going to very smartly here go ahead and bring back in this Tapu Fini to overwrite that Psychic Terrain, reset the Misty Surge. She is kind of hampering her own Amoonguss with not being able to put things to sleep, but it's no longer going to be the target of a double target Expanding Force.
Yeah, and I think we could potentially here be seeing the Amoonguss switching back out into the Incineroar, potentially predicting like a Max Mindstorm or even just an Expanding Force into that slot, just nullifying that with the Dark typing. So
yeah, for sure. And the other thing, sorry, I'm dealing with a little bit of a issue with our stuff going on, and then but yeah, I think that the interesting thing that we could see is that damage mitigation and just kind of this super slow play continuing from Woke Flossie, trying to see the fact that, yeah, Trick Room's going up, but she's already at this point switched both Pokemon out and back in 2 times, which is kind of incredible. We're back to where we started after both already getting out and then back in.
Yeah, we do see a Dynamax this turn, unlike the turn 1 with the same Pokemon on the field. Presumably this Hatterene is going to be Dynamaxing, potentially going for either a Max Mindstorm into the Amoonguss, or potentially even into the Tapu Fini slot. And if it is into the Amoonguss slot, it's not going to be very good for Squiddo.
Yeah, for sure. So let's see what happens here from... It looks like it is that Max Mindstorm. It is going to be completely nullified by that Incineroar switch in. Expanding Force will come out. It's going to be targeting the Tapu Fini, though. Not doing a whole lot of damage because of the lack of Psychic Terrain. And this Tapu Fini is pretty free to just go ahead and set up a Calm Mind in this instance.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, at this point, with the Misty Terrain still up, you can't be confused by G-Max Smite. So the best play for the Squiddo is probably going to be to set Psychic Terrain into the Tapu Fini, which leaves the Incineroar able to Parting Shot out again, or even damage this Indeedee here without really any threat of damage itself.
Yeah, for sure. So, potentially here, the threat with that Incineroar, that Parting Shot in front of that Hatterene, could be looking at trying to Parting Shot it out of the game and lower the Incineroar's attack and special attack by 1 stage. Then Indeedee is kind of forced in this instance to continue to click Follow Me. Even if you go for a Max Mindstorm into the Fini, you can't go for an Expanding Force because you leave yourself open to that. And we do see Indeedee goes ahead and clicks the Follow Me here, not wanting to deal with the potential. And as you said, the Max Mindstorm comes out into that Tapu Fini. +1 special defense helps it take that relatively well, just a little bit under 50%. And I forget exactly what berry we saw in this. Looks like it was not citrus.
I believe it was a leftovers.
It was leftovers, that's correct, yeah. I've been so used to the other berries that I've been using on it. So we see here the reveal of the Indeedee is actually going to be... Is it going to be a pinch berry? Nope, that is a citrus berry.
Yeah, and then we see just another Calm Mind from this Tapu Fini, just continuously boosting up, trying to stall out Trick Room. Potentially a little bit too passive with the amount of damage we saw last turn from the unboosted Max Mindstorm, with now a potentially boosted Max Mindstorm coming out this turn. But it is still stalling out Trick Room pretty effectively, with potentially protecting here on the last turn of Dynamax.
Yeah, for sure. Getting up to +2 on both special defense and special attack is really nice. And yeah, thanks for letting us know Chase was quiet. Razzie went ahead and fixed that. So here, Amy, with the boosts on this, she's been able to functionally trade Elijah's entire Dynamax for a little bit of damage here on this Tapu Fini thus far. It looks like she's actually going to go ahead and mitigate this damage further by maxing, and going to be able to overwrite the terrain if she so chooses.
Yeah, and it's looking like a Max Guard is actually what's coming out here. Potentially trying to block the last turn of a G-Max Smite into that slot, or even just the Max Mindstorm damage fully, while taking out the Indeedee. It'll be... Oh, and we do see a Helping Hand, so maybe a Helping Hand Mindstorm was going into that slot.
Yep, we'll see right here. Or it could be a Helping Hand Smite into that Incineroar slot, hitting neutral. But nope, it is going to be targeting that Fini, and now Incineroar is free to go ahead and KO this Indeedee with Darkest Lariat, and next turn can force out the Hatterene if Wokeflossy so chooses with that Parting Shot. There's not a ton on Elijah's side of the field that can come in and block that outside of perhaps his own Incineroar going for a Fake Out, or the Rillaboom potentially going for a Fake Out.
Or potentially the Metagross coming in and ally switching.
That's true. That's not a move that we see a whole lot on Metagross, though.
Oh no, not at all. But I have seen it a couple of times, and every single time it has gotten me at least one turn.
Yeah, so we do see the Rillaboom come out here. It's going to overwrite the terrain, so it's no longer Psychic Terrain, and it's now going to be Grassy Terrain, as we see kind of battle the terrains here in game number 1 of the night. This Hatterene now, its Dynamax is completely gone, and it basically traded it for 50% on a Tapu Fini and a Max Guard. Not really where you want to be.
Not at all. But at this point, a double up into this Rillaboom slot seems pretty free with the Max Starfall and the Flare Blitz, because it can only fake out the Incineroar or Grassy Glide the Fini, which neither of which will kill, unless it's potentially Choice Band Rillaboom. Although on this team, I would assume something like an Assault Vest, providing like the pivoting and utility. But
yep. We do see the Grassy Lag come out. It does close to full damage there, leaving Tapu Fini with just about 49. But that +2 special defense coming in big, not doing a whole lot of damage into the Tapu Fini. And we see Flare Blitz isn't enough for a one-hit KO there, but it does get the burn. There is a lot of chip damage done from that Flare Blitz, and because of the double up here, this Misty Terrain will go ahead and, or the Max Starfall will go ahead and take out the Rillaboom as well as reset Misty Terrain.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be kind of funny that potentially the best play here for Wilkeswassy, and it will be a winning play, would be Max Guard, attack one time, Max Guard again with this Tapu Fini, depending on what comes out here last. And as Trick Room does expire this turn.
Yeah, so she is in the position where this Tapu Fini will likely be moving before anything else. Depending on the speed of this Metagross, I think that Tapu Fini's base speed is faster, correct, anyway?
I believe so. It's 75 versus... No, 75 versus 70?
Somewhere in that range. But, yeah, we also don't know quite how this Metagross is trained or how this Fini is trained, so she could potentially be faster, or she could just, as you said, go ahead and, stall and take some damage. She does have to be a little bit careful about Trick Room getting back up if this Hatterene... if this is in fact like a slow Metagross, and Trick Room could be set for the second time in a match, that would be kind of devastating.
Mm-hmm. As we do see the Max Guard potentially trying to take out this Metagross before it can attack, thinking that the Hatterene is slower, but we're just going to see the Stomping Tantrum into the Shuckleberry Incineroar here.
Yep. So kind of wasted protects from both Wilkeswassy and Squiddo. As this Incineroar, the Shuckleberry does go ahead and let it live, and it goes for a Darkest Lariat into the Hatterene. Importantly, we see that the Incineroar is in fact slower than this Metagross, so we're probably not seeing a situation of like a zero-speed Metagross, which could potentially underspeed an Incineroar. But
yeah, I would assume that neither of these Pokemon are zero speed, in which case it's almost certainly just a regular Incineroar and a regular Metagross, but we could be wrong. We could have Min-Speed Incineroar and Min-Speed Metagross.
It's true, yeah. In which case, yeah, the Incineroar would still be slower in that Metagross. So we see Wilkeswassy here kind of contemplate a switch, potentially switching over into her own Metagross or the Amoonguss. With that Tapu Fini being the fastest thing on the field, it should be moving first, so she can choose to get some big damage off from a +2 whatever she chooses. She is running out of time here with only 7 seconds left to still click her last move.
Mm-hmm. And I assume it'll just be locking into a +2 Muddy Water. One of the scariest moves to have to lock yourself into, knowing that 85% accuracy is not always in your favor.
Yeah, for sure. So here we just see a Protect come out from this Metagross as the opposing Metagross switches in and the Muddy Water comes out. Let's see if it goes ahead and connects. It does connect with the Hatterene here, and it should do a pretty good chunk of damage at +2, right about 50%. As Hatterene does go for the Trick Room yet again.
I think this is the first time I've ever seen a Hatterene lead go all 5 turns of Trick Room without taking any damage, and then get another Trick Room up in like the 7th turn.
Yeah, for sure. So in this positioning, this Hatterene probably doesn't have anything that hits this Metagross super effectively outside of potentially a Mystical Fire, and that's not really a move you want to click into Metagross, as most of them tend to be weakness policy.
Yeah, that's definitely not a move you're wanting to click into a Metagross. We do see the Hatterene protecting here. As I believe the Tapu Fini is also protecting, potentially scouting out the Protect right there to last another turn.
Yep.
And we just see two... Yeah, and we'll just see 2 Iron Heads fall kind of flat into opposing Protects.
Yep, we do see that, and in this instance, it looks like either it's a speed tie or Elijah's Metagross is in fact slower than Wilkwassy's.
Mm-hmm. We're going to see the Metagross actually potentially switch out here. I'm not sure why. It has a pretty free Iron Head into this Hatterene slot, knowing that it just protected this previous turn.
Mm-hmm. And there aren't...
Although potentially like guarding from like a Stomping Tantrum crit from the opposing Metagross, although I'm not even sure if that would KO.
Yeah, given the kind of bulkiness of both of these and the fact that neither at this moment has a boost, we're probably just going to go ahead and see this Tapu Fini go down to an Iron Head from the Metagross. Oh, we actually see the Metagross go for the Stomping Tantrum here. Incredibly risky play, given the fact that now Wilkeswassy is going to have her own um, weakness policy procced, and this Tapu Fini is going to get a second attack off, potentially a single target Muddy Water, dropping accuracy, making things incredibly dangerous for Squiddo in the last turn or in the next turn. So it looks like Metagross actually goes ahead and avoids in this case.
Yeah, good thing. The one good thing about Clear Body is you just can't get those accuracy drops.
Of course, accuracy drops, Clear Body.
But still, Muddy Water is still such a strange move because it's either I hate this move because it missed, or I love this move because now my opponents missed.
Exactly. Yeah. So in this positioning, we've seen if it is a speed tie, then Elijah's been incredibly lucky this entire time. I want to err on the side of it's likely not a speed tie, and his Metagross is probably trained a little bit slower, so we should see the Stomping Tantrum come out here and go ahead and pick off the KO on Wokeflossy.
Yeah. I mean, and that was about like the only place what Elijah could have done here, trying to dodge Muddy Waters for the rest of this game. But even at this point,
yeah,
it just takes one more, and the Incineroar is still a threat, and both of these Pokemon can attack it on the same turn. And Metagross can only take out one at a time, given that it doesn't have First Strike.
Yeah, for sure. So here we see the Incineroar come back out, and now forcing probably a Protect from Elijah's Metagross, if it has it, from a potential Fake Out and Muddy Water. We actually see Wokeflossy lock immediately into the Flare Blitz there, knowing that her Incineroar is actually faster than this, and the damage will just be enough to go and pick up the Metagross.
And that was a pretty well played game one, I would say, from Wokeflossy's end, knowing the win cons and kind of just stalling out the Hatterene.
Yeah.
The one thing is not ever letting the Hatterene get the Gmax Smite off is probably what won the game, because having to deal with potentially like 2 to 5 turns of confusion on either Pokemon is very game breaking and could potentially lose the game if just one turn goes wrong.
Yeah, for sure. So here we go. That was game number 1 of our first set here on the ATX VGC Monday Night Friendly. Scrolling through chat real quick, we see Ambrosio talking about how the Stomping Tantrum was actually a pretty great play because knowing that Elijah's Metagross wouldn't be targeted there and was free to go ahead and go for super effective damage, as well as really any attack into that Hatterene would have been enough to pick up the KO.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. Looking at this for game 2, though, what do you think that Elijah's adjustments could potentially be?
Yeah, seeing how easily he was able to get Trick Room up, I think that really the game-breaking play for Wokeflossy in this last game was the switch-in of that Incineroar blocking the Max Mindstorm, really being able to completely mitigate Elijah's entire max, 3 turns of max for 50% on a Fini that ends up maxing itself isn't really the trade you want to make. So potentially playing a little bit more carefully and ignoring that Amoonguss, because really what is an Amoonguss going to do other than potentially put your Indeedee to sleep? It's not going to be putting your Hatterene to sleep.
Yeah, and potentially even like the Amoonguss might not be the call just in general against this team. It takes super effective damage from both the Indeedee and the Hatterene, potentially even the Metagross as well, and definitely the Incineroar. And Rillaboom can just ignore the Rage Powder, so potentially Amoonguss isn't the play here, bringing something like the Garchomp or the Zapdos in the last slot instead.
Yeah, for sure. So I think this Incineroar is really key to this matchup because 1, it hits super effective against so many things, 2, it offers disruption with Intimidate and Fake Out, and then 3, being able to pressure that parting shot that Elijah has now seen in game 1 with the parting shot on turn 1 against that Indeedee. We'll go ahead and see here if how these trainers have changed up their leads. Looks like right off the bat here, we're going to have Incineroar and Metagross come out from Elijah, so a very different team composition from the first time around, and Incineroar and Zapdos from Wokeflossy.
Yeah, no, I mean, a completely different, complete switch up here from the Indeedee hat on Elijah's side and from the Fini on Wokeflossy's side, and potentially with the combination of Flare Blitz and a Max Flare from the Zapdos, taking out the Metagross pretty early. Although I'm not sure if that's the safest play, not knowing potentially the speed tiers and everything, and proccing policy without getting the KO.
Yeah, so we do know from last game that this Incineroar is going to go ahead and be the Incineroar is slower than the Metagross, and we can presume that the Zapdos will be faster than that Metagross based on Elijah's Metagross underspeeding Wolflossie's Metagross. Um, so could be a really interesting play here.
We could just see a fake out from the Incineroar and an airstream into the Incineroar from Wolflossie's side, or even potentially. I assume both Incineroars are going to be trying to fake each other out. It just determines which has the higher speed.
Yep. We see right here, Wolflossie will be going for the Dynamax on turn 1 with the Zapdos. An interesting play I think I saw her lock into, but I'll confirm that as soon as I see what the Incineroar does. I saw she was picking between a few different options. So here we see the Zapdos goes ahead and maxes turn 1 as we see, I'm expecting, yep, we do see the Metagross now go ahead and max from Elijah's side of the field. So both of these trainers going ahead and on turn 1 getting their max up.
And if I had to guess, based on the way this Incineroar was played game 1 from Wolflossie, that it barely has any speed investment, and I would assume that Squiddo's is a little bit faster. As we do see the Squiddo outspeed and fake out the Zapdos.
Faked out the Zapdos as the Zapdos goes for a max airstream here into... Ooh, that almost takes out the opposing Incineroar.
Yeah, that's a very strong attack.
Yeah, so now with the increased speed priority here, we do see the Pinch Berry come. I'm presuming Pinch Berry. Yes, yeah. With the Wiki Berry here from this Incineroar, and we actually see a Flare Blitz into the Metagross, which will go ahead and proc the weakness policy.
Yeah, I think Wolflossie a bit tried to assume like maybe I'll Flare Blitz it and proc the weakness policy after it attacks, but forgot about the Airstream boost. We do see the Spine Storm come into this Zapdos, and this might just be a one-hit KO.
Yeah, that is a one-hit KO right there, as the max Airstream really working against Wolflossie on that turn.
Yeah. And it was funny, Squiddo faked out into a Dynamax Mon and still ended up with the KO on it by the end of the turn, so the play half worked, half didn't work.
Yeah, for sure. So now I feel like Wolflossie is in a pretty rough position, not having her Dynamax against an already boosted Metagross, and another Flare Blitz will not be taking that out. And her own Metagross should outspeed it, so she could opt to go ahead and double it, and potentially that's going to be enough, but it's a pretty rough positioning.
Yeah, no, a Max Quake into either of these Pokemon is going to be pretty devastating. Knowing that the Incineroar is Shuka Berry and being +2 with the Metagross, so Max Quake should KO through the Shuka. But, I mean, maybe that's the safer play, knowing that this Metagross could protect. But at this point, full HP Metagross with no Dynamax left on your side is going to be a bit difficult to break through.
Yeah, for sure. So here we see Elijah goes ahead and switches out that Incineroar, brings in the Dragonite, but interestingly enough, I think the next move that we should see is the Incineroar going for a parting shot onto this Dragonite, dropping its attack and special attack by 1 stage.
And we'll see the Tapu Fini switch in, potentially weakening any Dragon-type moves it would try to go for, although in the face of a Metagross and a Tapu Fini, I don't think the Dragon move is the one you're going to be clicking.
No, I don't think so either. So here we see the Misty Surge go ahead and get set up, and we next should see the Metagross go for an attack here. It goes for the Stomping Tantrum. Ooh, and it was targeting into the Dragonite. That's a really rough play.
Yeah, and the Metagross is getting taken out directly. It seems like everything that went wrong in Game 1 for Elijah is going right in Game 2.
Yeah, for sure.
Vice versa for Wolflossie. So at this point, there's nothing you can do to come back.
Yeah, it really is. Now that this Incineroar no longer has a speed boost, it's going to be undersped by both of these Pokemon. But, you know, you might be able to get some information here. Maybe some information about the item on that Dragonite. Maybe some information about kind of the speed interaction between... really, that's all you can learn, because we already know the speed interaction between the Fini, the Incineroar, and the Metagross. Maybe you try and get some calcs, too. Figure out exactly how much damage you can do unboosted.
Yeah. And, I mean, yeah, it's all about, like, I guess, information at this point. But even then, I potentially, if I was in this position, would probably just click run, trying to preserve my own information versus trying to figure out more information on the opposing side. But maybe potentially knowing what the last Pokemon here is, Rillaboom gives you like a game 3 option of maybe it's Instant Metagross, Rillaboom, Dragonite again.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, this Metagross mode really worked a lot better for Elijah, as we can see here. Couple of key little plays could have swung the game drastically, depending on how that turn 1 kind of really defined everything.
Yeah. Something like a fake out into the Incineroar and an Airstream into it, and then the following turn, a Max Flare plus a Flare Blitz into the Metagross could have picked up the KO, but instead, just Flare Blitzing into the Metagross, doing 25% and getting KO on your Dynamax is probably not the way to go for game 2.
Yeah, for sure. So we see here that goes ahead and KOs through the Shuckle Berry. It also got a pretty unnecessary critical hit, as the +2 Metagross should be enough to go ahead and KO an Incineroar from 50%, even with that Shuckle Berry.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, this is the point where you click. Actually, at this point, you just want to see probably Grassy Glide calcs onto the Tapu Fini, but knowing after game 1 that it did about 45% to the Dynamax, you can guess that it's going to do somewhere between 85 and 90 to the non-Dynamax.
Yeah, for sure. Does that give away any information as to the potential item on this Rillaboom?
I think it confirms that it's not choice banned.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it just shouldn't be a boosting item in general based off that damage. It should be just max attack. Although it could be some weird, like, 4 attack Miracle Seed.
That's what I was about to suggest, because I know that's something that you and I ran at a different point.
Yeah, no, it very well could be. I mean, best guess would be it's Assault Vest, knowing that the Incineroar didn't have the Assault Vest, the Metagross didn't have the Assault Vest, and probably the Dragonite didn't have an Assault Vest. So my guess would be that the Rillaboom does, based on the team composition. Other than that, I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of what we saw game 2, that we saw game 3, or that we're going to see game 3. The one difference will be not proccing the weakness policy.
Yeah, I think that if Woke can be in a position where she doesn't proc that weakness policy, she's not going to lose her Zapdos, and she can put herself in a position to take out the Metagross before. We see her as she goes ahead and checks a couple of interactions, thinking maybe this Garchomp might be a way through Elijah's team for her, but ultimately this Garchomp, I believe, was intentionally put on this team to self-proc her own Metagross's weakness policy, which is not going to help a whole ton when trying to proc an opposing Pokemon's weakness policy. Given the lead that we saw last game, do you think that perhaps Squiddo is carrying Bulldoze on his Incineroar?
I mentioned that at the beginning of game 1. At the beginning of the set, it very well could be an option. It's a strange option that you would use only for self-proc and not for speed control, because the speed difference between Incin and Metagross is not particularly high. So if we do see that, we could potentially see a Bulldoze and Max Mindstorm again this turn, and Woke Flossie's one way out of that would be to fake out this Incineroar.
Yeah, a fake out Max Airstream, based on the amount of damage that it took last time around, could potentially be enough to go ahead and take it out. We saw it get down to red before eating its berry, but with the additional fake out damage, there's a potential that that's enough to just go ahead and KO it before it can get back down into berry proc range.
Do you think this Incineroar is EV'd for that? It's EV'd specifically to take an Incineroar fake out into a Life Orb Max Airstream from a Zapdos?
You know, my guess is the Incineroar is not specifically EV'd to that, but we know that Incineroar's got some pretty decent general bulk, so who knows, maybe it'll survive it.
I don't know. You weren't a part of me and Roller Coaster when we were getting out the notebook paper and writing out calcs to figure out like the exact % chance that a Whimsicott had to survive. Like an Incineroar fake out plus a non-Life Orb Max Airstream from Weakness Policy Dragapult. It was the most intense math I've ever had to do, and I'm taking a calculus class right now.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, we'll see here if it is specifically EV'd for that attack stat on that Incineroar to get the KO with the fake out into Max Airstream. It's kind of hard with Incineroar calcs too, because there isn't necessarily a standard. We see again the fake out into the Zapdos slot as Amy's Incineroar, which is slower. I That's going to be really close as to whether or not this is a KO here.
Might be a 1 HP survival.
Nope, that is just a stray KO. Was that a critical hit? It went down significantly faster.
Yeah, I don't think it was, though.
Yeah,
Potentially it was like the lowest roll versus the highest roll.
Yeah, for sure. So we see here Life Orb Zapdos will go ahead, and now it should tank this Max Mindstorm relatively well without the weakness policy boost. We see it only does about 40% damage, so now Wookfossi is in a position where she can set the Sun with Max Flare and Flare Blitz into this Metagross pretty freely. One move we haven't seen from this Metagross yet, Protect.
Yeah, there's a chance that it just is 4 attacks. Have we seen Steel Spike from it? Oh, we saw Iron Head.
We've seen Iron Head, we've seen Max Mindstorm, so perhaps it still has Protect, but it doesn't seem to be carrying Max Hailstorm like a lot of Metagrosses tend to do, because that would ultimately be doing more damage to the Zapdos in this case.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, at this point, this Dragonite's not particularly threatening to either of Wookfossi's Pokemon, and now you can just do the double fire move, Max Flare, plus Flare Blitz in the Sun. And with the Intimidate, it might not be enough to pick it up, but at the same time, you're putting yourself in such a good position taking this Metagross down to like 2 HP.
Yeah, for sure. Pretty much anything else will likely outspeed it, including Wookfossi's own Metagross. So here we see the Max Flare reveal, as that does about 50%. That is relatively tanky there on the special side. Let's see how it takes a Flare Blitz in the Sun from this Incineroar.
Yeah. Unless this Dragonite potentially has Superpower and gets a critical hit, because I don't think a non-crit Superpower would KO an Incineroar, but we do just see the Ice Punch.
Ooh, does
not enough to KO.
Yeah, doesn't have quite enough, as the Flare Blitz also is not going to be enough to KO in this instance. Interestingly enough, that and we do see the Max Mindstorm follow-up for the double-up here.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting play, because now this Incineroar is pretty free to pick off the Metagross.
Yeah, and whatever is in the back, potentially the Tapu Fini can come in and just Moonblast this, or even predicting something like the Rillaboom to switch into the slot, and you can Muddy Water to pick off the Metagross potentially, although I'm not sure it would KO, and Flare Blitz the Dragonite slot. Although maybe that's a bit too big of a read at this point in the game.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see.
If I had to make a guess, though, I'm guessing that this Dragonite slot is switching out into a Rillaboom right now.
that was what we saw last time around. It'll give us a little bit of information about this Dragonite if it decides to stay in.
Yeah.
I have a feeling what item it is, but I don't want to reveal that information on stream without confirmation. But
yeah.
Yep, we do see the withdrawal, as likely we're going to go ahead and see the Rillaboom switch in right here.
And Wookfossi goes for the Muddy Water, potentially trying to pick off this Metagross with just that. Although, in the Sun and the spread damage, I think Moonblast would have done more damage to the Metagross.
Yeah, for sure. So we actually see a Max Guard come out here from the Metagross. So the Flare Blitz will not, and the Flare Blitz actually would go first because of that +1 speed on this Incineroar.
So, at this point, and as the Rillaboom dodges, at this point you're very free to just click Flare Blitz into the Metagross and Moonblast into the Metagross, I think.
Yeah, so we do see here in Game 3 the reveal of Protect on that Metagross. We have not seen it go for a protecting move in any other instance. So saving that Max Guard for that point was pretty smart.
Mm-hmm. And as we do see the Moonblast, just select both attacks selecting the Metagross, calling potentially a Dragonite switch in, and covering a Fake Out from either of the Pokemon. Or onto either of the Pokemon from this Rillaboom.
Yep. So, with this, we see the Fake Out into the Tapu Fini, as the Incineroar will now be free to go ahead and pick up the KO on this Metagross, mitigating as much of that damage as possible. And now it really just kind of comes down to how much the Grassy Glide will do into this Fini. And potentially the Fini is free to protect this turn as well. It could be a pretty simple...
It could even, switch out, because it's back up full HP now with the combination of the leftovers and the graphics rank recovery.
Yeah, I completely forgot. Wookfossi still has a whole nother Pokemon in the back, so she's in a really good position with this Incineroar, +1 speed, in the Sun. Really going to go ahead and be putting a lot of pressure on here.
And if this Dragonite is potentially choice locked, like we may think, there's not one move you can lock into to hit Incineroar, Tapu Fini, and Metagross.
Yeah. There really isn't. There's not enough coverage from that. But yeah, I think based on the fact that we've seen it only attack once and switch. And based on its speed tier interactions with the +1 Incineroar, I think we can glean some information about its item.
Mm-hmm. Although it potentially could just be a slow Incineroar being around like 82 speed, so being at like 120 at +1. We could guess, but I would guess Choice Scarf based on the way it's played, or potentially even like max speed Choice Band.
Yeah, so we see the Grassy Glide, which is just going to go into this Metagross, doing a little chunk of damage as the Dragon Claw comes out, and if it is choice locked, then this Flare Blitz right here will go ahead and seal the game for Wokeflossy.
Yeah, unless it doesn't KO.
Oh, it didn't KO.
And is that? Oh, it's Shuka Berry, so it doesn't have the Pinch Berry recovery.
Yeah, it doesn't have a Pinch Berry, so it is in... Is it in range of another Dragon Claw? I kind of missed exactly how much damage that last one did.
Maybe, but at this point, this Metagross can't just Iron Head the Rillaboom, and then how many Dragon Claws does it take to KO a Metagross?
Yep. So that Intimidate putting in a lot of work there for Elijah in the first, from the very first turn, that this Incineroar has been attacking at -1 attack this whole time. So we see the Dragon Claw come out. It is enough to go ahead and pick up the KO, as we see Wokeflossy with her second move just go ahead and opt for the Iron Head onto this Rillaboom. Potentially was going to go for something like a, I don't know, knockoff high horsepower. Yeah, but the problem with knockoff is you still proc the weakness policy on Metagross.
Alright, I have a better question than I just had before.
Yes.
How many Dragon Claws does it take to KO a Metagross in misty terrain?
Oh, God.
Can I guess? You want to take a guess on how much damage it does?
I'm going to
guess 11.
11 damage. Let's see here. If we go ahead and get to see that, I believe that we're going to see this Dragonite move first. Based on Squiddo's team report, it was Choice Scarfed, I believe, so it should be moving first here, so we might get that information here. So Dragonite goes ahead and uses Dragon Claw.
More than 11. It did 14?
14, I think. But a Moonblast here, we'll just go ahead and... Well, no, it doesn't end the game. It's going to be the Ice Punch here that will go ahead and pick up the final KO for Wokeflossy as we go to game number 3 here in our very first of the Monday Night Friendlies for this week. Want to take a brief second to go ahead and say thanks to everyone who has been watching so far. We're really excited y'all are here.
Hey, you like that video? We think you should check this out, and YouTube thinks you should check this one out. And be sure to subscribe for more content.